Chapter 14: The Wild Sheep. The wild sheep ranks highest among the animal mountaineers of the Sierra. Possessed of keen sight and scent and strong limbs, he dwells secure amid the loftiest summits, leaping unscathed from crag to crag, up and down the fronts of giddy precipices, crossing foaming torrents and slopes of frozen snow, exposed to wildest storms, yet maintaining a brave, warm life, and developing from generation to generation in perfect strength and beauty. Nearly all the lofty mountain chains of the globe are inhabited by wild sheep, most of which, on account of the remote and all but inaccessible regions where they dwell, are imperfectly known as yet. They are classified by different naturalists under 5 to 10 distinct species or varieties, the best known being the burrell of the Himalaya, the agrale, the large wild sheep of Central and Northeastern Asia, the Corsican mouflon, the aoudad, the mountains of North Africa, and the Rocky Mountain bighorn. To the last named species belongs to the wild sheep of the Sierra. Its range, according to the late Professor Baird of the Smithsonian Institute, extends from the region of the upper Mississippi and the Yellowstone to the Rocky Mountains and the high grounds adjacent to them on the eastern slope, and as far south as the Rio Grande. Westward it extends to the coast ranges of Washington, Oregon, and California, and follows the highlands some distance into Mexico. Throughout the vast region bounded on the east by the Wasatch Mountains and on the west of the Sierra, there are more than 100 subordinate ranges and mountain groups trending north and south, range beyond range, with summits rising from 8 to 12,000 feet above the level of the sea, probably all of which, according to my own observations, is or has been inhabited by this species. Compared with the argali, which, considering its size and the vast extent of its range, is probably the most important of all the wild sheep, our species is about the same size, but the horns are less twisted and less divergent. The more important characteristics, however, essentially the same. Some of the best naturalists maintaining that two of the only varied forms of one species in accordance with this view. Cuvier conjectures that this Central Asia seems to be the region where the sheep first appeared, and from which it had been distributed. The argali may have been distributed over this continent from Asia by crossing the Bering Strait on ice. This conjecture is not so ill-founded as first sight would appear, for the strait is only about 50 miles wide, is interrupted by 3 islands, and is jammed with ice nearly every winter. Furthermore, the argali is abundant on the mountains adjacent to the strait at East Cape, where it is well known to the Chukuchi hunters, and where I have seen many of our horns. On account of the extreme variability of the sheep under culture, it is generally supposed that the innumerable domestic breeds have all been derived from the few wild species. But the whole question is involved in obscurity. According to Darwin, sheep have been domesticated from a very ancient period. The remains of a small breed differing from any now known having been found in the famous Swiss lake dwellings. Compared with the best known domestic breeds, we find that our wild species is much larger, and instead of an all-wool garment wears a thick overcoat of hair like that of the deer, and an undercovering of fine wool. The hair, though very coarse, is comfortable, soft, and spongy, and lies smooth, as if carefully tended with comb and brush. The predominant color during most of the year is the brownish gray, varying to bluish gray in the autumn. The belly and a large conspicuous patch on the buttocks are white, and the tail, which is very short like that of the deer, is black with yellowish border. The wool is white and grows in beautiful spiral down out of sight among the shining hair, like delicate climbing vines among stalks of corn. The horns of the male are of immense size, measuring in their greater diameter from 5 to 6.5 inches, and from 2.5 to 3 feet in length around the curve. They are yellowish white in color and ridged transversely like those of the domestic ram. Their cross section near the base is somewhat triangular in outline and flattened toward the tip. Rising boldly from the top of the head, they curve gently backward and outward, then forward and outward until about 3/4 of a circle is described, and until the flattened blunt tips are about 2 feet or 2.5 feet apart. These of the female are flattened throughout their entire length and are less curved than those of the male, and much smaller, measuring less than a foot along the curve. A ram and ewe that I obtained near the Modoc lava beds to the northeast of Mount Shasta. The measurements of a male obtained in the Rocky Mountains by Ubudon vary but little as compared with the above. The weight of his specimen was 344 pounds, which is perhaps about an average size for full-grown males. The females are about a third lighter. Besides these differences in size, color, hair, etc., as noted above, we may observe that domestic sheep in a general way is expressionless, like a dull bundle of something only half alive. While the wild is as elegant and graceful as deer, every moment manifesting admirable strength and character, the tame is timid. The wild is bold, the tame is always more or less ruffled and dirty. While the wild is as smooth and clean as the flowers of his mountain pastures. The earliest mention that I have been able to find of the wild sheep in America is by Father Piccolo, Catholic missionary at Monterey, in the year 1797, who, after describing it oddly enough as a kind of deer with a sheep-like head and about as large as a calf of 1 or 2 years old, naturally hurries on to remark, "I have eaten of those beasts. Their flesh is very tender and delicious." Mackenzie in his northern travels heard that the species spoken of by the Indians as white buffaloes. And Lewis and Clark tell us that in a time of great scarcity on the headwaters of the Missouri, they saw plenty of wild sheep, but they were too shy to be shot. A few of the more energetic of the Paiute Indians hunt the wild sheep every season among the more accessible sections of the High Sierra. In the neighborhood of passes where, from having been pursued, they have become extremely wary, but in the rugged wilderness of peaks and canyons where the foaming tributaries of San Joaquin and Kings River take their rise, they fear no hunter save the wolf, and are more guileless and approachable than their tame kindred. While engaged in the work of exploring high regions where they delight to roam, I have been greatly interested in studying their habits. In the months of November and December, and probably during a considerable portion of midwinter, they all flock together, male and female, old and young. I once found a complete band of this kind, numbering upward of 50, which, on being alarmed, went bounding away across a jagged lava bed at admirable speed, led by a majestic old ram, with the lamb safe in the middle of the flock. In the spring and summer, the full-grown rams form separate bands of from 3 to 20 and are usually found feeding around the edges of glacier meadows or resting among the castle-like crags of the high summits. And whether quietly feeding or scaling wild cliffs, their noble forms and the power and beauty of their movements never fail to strike the beholder with lively admiration. Their resting places seem to be chosen with reference to sunshine and wide outlook, and most of all to the safety. Their feeding grounds are among the most beautiful of the wild gardens, bright with daisies and gentians and mats of purple bryanthus, lying hidden away on rocky headlands and canyon slides where sunshine is abundant, or down in the shady glacier valleys along the banks of the streams and lakes where the pushy sod is greenest, where they feast all summer, the happy wanderers perhaps relishing the beauty as well as the taste of the lovely flora on which they feed.